So for today's build, we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm not going to build a custom bike out of some random bike I got off Craigslist. I'm not going to do a customer service. I'm not going to do a restoration. I'm going to build myself a bike out of random crap that I have lying around. People give me a lot of old bikes that they don't want anymore. And typically, if they're not something worth restoring, like this Schwinn I found on the curb, I'll take them apart and I'll just kind of organize all the parts into bins and shelves so that when I do need whatever that part is, be it like a brake lever or brake caliper or stem or whatever it is, I can get to it quickly and I can just kind of go through all the stuff that I've got in inventory and just kind of find whatever I'm looking for. There's a lot of stuff in there that's kind of common that I don't think I'm ever going to necessarily need, or I've got doubles on it. Like this, for instance, again, I don't even know how many old lug steel frames. I have more than a dozen of them hanging in my garage and a bunch behind these doors in my storage area that I don't even know when I'm going to get to them. So this one is going to become my new bang around bike. It's just going to be a bike that I use to bang around town. Bike that I throw on a rack on the back of the car when we go travel that I just don't really have to care much about. We're going to make it out of random parts out of the pile. I don't really know exactly what they're going to be at this point in time. So let's go eeny, meeny, miny, mo our way into finding something that we can assemble into a bike. Now, even though I'm kind of building this bike out of random junk, and it's not really meant to be a nice bike, it doesn't mean I'm not going to try and make it as nice as I can. So I'm going to be cleaning all of these parts as I assemble them. And we are going to use correct greases and torque settings and all of that because I do want it to be a 100% functional bike that I can use every day. I live on top of a rather steep hill, and so we're going to have to do some rather low gearing for this thing because I think I just want to make it a 1-speed. I don't really want to even mess with derailleurs and cables. I just want to make it something that's as simple to ride and maintain as humanly possible. So a 1-speed, probably with a coaster brake, is kind of what I'm thinking right now. I'm not 100% sure what I have in the back for coaster brake hubs. I don't think I have much of anything, to be honest. But we'll have to see what I can scrape up. I'm pretty sure I've got a kid's bike wheel back there that I might be able to unlace and use that hub. That's pretty clean for now. I think the next step is going to be I need to get the fork mounted so I can put it into my other stand because I really don't like this stupid jiggly stand. I like my other one. And I'm going to have to do quite a bit of tuning and trying to get the chain line lined up because I'm going to be mating parts together that were never meant to be together. So we're going to have to try and see what I can do to make all of that work. I do think this frame is actually pretty interesting. I found this on the curb right here in town, like 2 blocks up the street. Somebody had it out for the garbage. And I swooped in and grabbed it real quick. The interesting thing is if you look at the dropouts, this is right when they went from the style hanger that I put on my wife's bike on the last video to actually integrating the hanger into the frame, which is odd that they did that because this is a worse way to do it because now the hanger is not replaceable. But that little part that used to be taken up by the hanger, they just filled that in the casting so that the wheel sits in the same spot and you can adjust from the other side, from the non-drive side. I just thought that was kind of funny that they just filled that in and then added a hanger. But I think this is going to be our horse going forward. I got to think of a really good name for this thing. So this is the fork that I selected. I selected it for a very, very good performance-oriented reason. It's the only one that fits. So out of all the forks I've got, this is the only one that I think once I get the cups on this thing, it'll actually be the right height. Or maybe just a hair too long, which I'd rather have it too long than too short. For obvious reasons, I can just cut it down if it's too long. But I think that's going to work. It's still really, really greasy. I don't know what happened to the fork for this bike. I think I either used it on another build or possibly the fork was bent and that's why this bike was thrown out. Don't remember, but it's not in my collection anymore, or if it is, it's in the back somewhere where I couldn't find it. I kind of vaguely remember it in my head because I think it had this sort of 1980s Schwinn logo that looks all high tech for about 1984 or 5. I'm gonna assume this bike is like a 1984. It's an 84, definitely, I guess. Right, I dug around and I found a headset that I think will work. It's not the style that I wanted. It's the style that's got the bearing race right here that goes into the top of the tube. I like the ones that are upside down. Well, not upside down. It's the way it was for however long it was. And then for whatever reason, they flipped it over and they made it so that this is on the tube, or this is on the frame, and this is on the fork instead of having it the other way around where it was like that. So I have to use this top part with it and this part on the frame. And then for the bottom, I just found a standard one. We'll just use like that. Got them shined up. They look pretty good. So let's get some grease in there and we'll get this pressed on. Kind of looking forward to getting this bike done because there's a lot of bike rides I want to do with my son. A lot of trips we're going to be taking. I want to be able to put this on the back of the car. Just kind of use it at campgrounds and stuff. All right, so it just makes it harder to put the bearings in. If you do, like I'm going to do caged bearings on this because usually what I like to do is do this style where they're the other way around and then you can squirt grease around there and you can just pack your bearings in there, put the top on. It's just more convenient. I mean, that's really what it comes down to is I just think the other way is easier to service than this, but this works too. I mean, it's not going to be that big a deal. I mean, I don't really see me needing to service the headset on this bike very often or maybe even ever again. All right, let's go about there. That's perfect right there. All right, the time has come to assemble this, so I'm going to grab a little grease inside my bottom bearing. I'm going to use caged bearings on this because of the way that the headset is. And because if this ever does have to come apart, there's a pretty good chance I'm going to be in a field somewhere or someplace where having loose bearings is probably going to be a bad idea. So we're just going to use caged bearings for this one. Get that all mushed full of grease. I'm using some old bearings, but we cleaned them out. Should be good. Should be good. Kind of moment of truth. It will line up right. Look at that. We got threads. So we're going to put this on here to hold for now. All right. Get you up. Yeah, that's where I keep that. So you go like that. I think we're going to have one that works. Right. So this fork, I could not believe how well this polished out. Like back in the day, even on like the cheapest bikes, they put the most durable hard coat chrome. I mean, this stuff is just like bulletproof. This fork came off of a bike that a customer actually brought me. He was bringing his bike in for service and he saw this old Schwinn hanging out on the side of the road. Somebody was just put it out to the trash and it was pretty mangled. Like the fork was, or the fork and the handlebars were at like 90-degree angles. And what basically happened is it looked like it got into a bad wreck and then the stem just was at a different angle than the fork. But the fork was just fine. Frame was pretty mangled when it went end over end. And none of the components were really worth very much because it had set outside. But I got a handful of good things off of it. And Zane, if you're watching this video, this is that blue Schwinn. It's like it was born for it. Holy crap, look at that. That is fantastic. I never would have guessed it would fit that well, but it's like it was born to be there. So our random collection of front end parts have successfully been mated for a working front end. I think our next step is going to be putting a bottom bracket in this, which I have a new-ish one that I bought for $5 at a bike swap meet. So we have a good square taper cartridge style bottom bracket I can throw in this, easy enough. That's going to be a no-brainer. And then I have to find a stem for this, and I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to use for that. In fact, I'm not really even sure what I'm going to use for bars, but I know they're probably going to be 1 inch. So, all right, this is probably the only new part that I'm using on it. It is a Power Pro Components square taper bottom bracket. So we are going to put this guy in here. I did kind of want to have a good bottom bracket just because I'm pretty heavy and this bike's probably going to take a fair bit of abuse. So I tend to jump bikes off curbs and stuff like this, at least ones like this. I like to ride them like I'm 12. So now that the bottom bracket is in, and this one is buttery smooth, by the way, it's very, very nice. Next step is going to be a crankset, and I think I'm going to use this one that came off a salvage bike, probably just because it's so ugly I don't think I can put it on anything else. But I'm going to have to do a little modification because this is a triple ring. We are not going to need 3 rings. We're only going to need 1 because, like I said, I want to try and make this a 1-speed with a coaster brake just for simplicity. But I do have a big hill. So what I'm going to have to do is take this big ring off, take the small ring off, and then I'll see what I have for rings. I might keep this mid ring as the main ring. I might find another one, but I'm gonna need another ring to space this out so the fasteners are bottomed out correctly because they're a certain length and I need them to bottom out right. So I'm gonna see what I can find for that and start taking this apart. Oh, this is going to be not fun. Let me clip this one off. After we get these all fixed up, after we get this ring off, I think what I'm going to do is just wire brush this quick. I'm not going to take the time to polish all this out. That's just going to take too long. So I might do like a brushed aluminum finish on it just to get this, whatever this garbage is, off. But I do not want to take all the time to polish this because that's just asking for way, way too much time. Ugh. One of the things that you really need when you're doing this is really high quality wrenches. These Weras are kind of awesome for that because they're nice and long, they're color coded, and they're hardened to I don't know what Rockwell steel, but they are very, very nice. These are actually coming off relatively easy. Well, I should not say that until I get them all cracked. Yeah, there, I just jinxed myself. Yeah, it's just turning the backside. So maybe I'll drill that one out. All right, we got to figure out how to get these other ones out. I'm not 100% sure how we're going to go about that. Okay, that last one was quite a bugger. It did not want to come out of there at all. But I have a mill at my house, and there's not a lot of things a mill won't solve. So went up there and I milled the last one out, and so we should be good to go now. So I think I'm going to use this 40 tooth as my primary drive chain wheel. I'm going to clean all of this up and just give it a quick wire brush. I don't want to polish this, but I will wire brush it, just see how good I can make it look relatively quickly. Well, I'm happy to say after running everything through the wire wheel, I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's got like this sort of Mad Max post-apocalyptic kind of rusticated, messed up sort of look to it. That's sort of like a half spray chrome kind of thing. I don't know, I really like it. So when we get it put together, it'll kind of look like that, and I kind of like that look. That'll look great. So I went and looked through my bins of stuff, and I do have what I think is a short enough set of fasteners that I can make this thing work without spacers and without putting another ring on the outside. But this will be, I haven't tried to fit it yet, so this will be sort of the yes it'll work or no it won't. And no it won't. Dang. All right, so I'm gonna have to find a shorter ring. All right, so I went through my entire stack of rings over here, and there's only one that I think I can use as a spacer. So this is a 40 tooth, that's the one I want. This is a 42 tooth that, if you look at the teeth, they're very, very worn out. So I think it's probably only good as a spacer. So if I do that, and then I clamp the whole thing together, I can use that one as a spacer for the ring that I actually want to put the chain on. I'm just going to try and get this all assembled and see if it's tight and it works. Actually, before I do that, we're going to grease all of this first and then get it assembled. That needs to be wire brushed. So much wire brushing. All right, let's put some grease in that one. I do not want to relive this ever again. If this becomes something that I have to take apart, I don't want to relive this whole nightmare of milling out parts and trying to make stuff work. All right, I'm gonna go through and torque all of these and we'll get her put on the bike. All right, let's get this bad boy mounted up. Hopefully we don't have any fit or interference problems, because that's what I'm afraid of. Good, we do not. Don't have any fit problems yet. Let's get her all torqued in place here. Then we can move on to our stem. Actually, I don't know if I want to mess with the stem just yet. I'm trying to think of what should be next. Right, crankset mounted. Look at the bearings in that thing. She rolls very nice. All right, now that we've got the crankset mounted, I think we're going to work on trying to figure out a seat and a stem. So this is the back side of a Schwinn seat that I got off of another bike. These are super comfortable. I like these seats for cruising. Problem being is, as you can see, like I was talking about, Schwinn had a very weird proprietary teeny tiny seat post size for this. This is the size of one that will fit our current frame. And you can see it's a lot bigger in diameter. So I have to try and adapt it to this. Now the other little wrinkle in this is, if you notice, seat rails on this are bars. They're not round, they're like flat. So what I'm gonna have to try and do is take hardware that will work with this seat post and then swap it out with the outer parts of this mounting so that I can use this size seat post with these flat seat bars. I'm really hoping I can make this work, because if I can, I'll have parts from 60s vintage Schwinns, 90s, 70s. So far, all of our parts are really off of Schwinn's. I don't know what that crankset was off of, but the fork was off of a Schwinn. The seat's gonna be off a Schwinn. Frame is obviously a Schwinn. So I'm gonna have a lot of Schwinn parts. Wait, did I put that on upside down? No, wrong one. Yeah, dang it. See, that's why you don't count chickens before hatched and all of that. I put it on backwards. Pay attention to what you're doing. I mean, don't. Remember, I just did this to show you how not to do it, because, you know, I'm a YouTube professional, so. All right, that's excellent. That is excellent. It means I can use that seat. So let's go get this put on, and we'll see what we can do with it. So to mount a seat, we're gonna need a really cool seat clamp. And I found this one off of, I have no idea what, in my pile of junk. And I think it's awesome. May not work, it doesn't clear very well, but we're gonna give that a solid I don't care, it looks cool, and mount it anyway. It's also way too long on this side, but I think I'll cut it off. Let's take a Dremel and cut that thing off, because this is way too cool to not use it. It looks awesome. There we go. There you go. All right. Springy. That is fantastic. I could not be happier with that. So now we've got probably 80s, late 80s, definitely 70s, definitely 60s. Need to find some 90s bars for this thing. Not sure, we'll see. Okay, so I went through my options for what stem I'm gonna use. Unfortunately, I think it's gonna have to be this one. I don't think anything else is going to really fit. The other thing with this stem is, this thing is such an ugly, cheap thing that I can never use this on a customer bike. It's heavy and it's ugly and it's the most, I don't know, I could never use this on a customer bike. I mean, just look at the welds on the back of this thing. I mean, that's horrendous. I think I've met blind children that could weld better with their feet. So it seems like it's probably perfect for this bike because I'll just never get to ever use this thing on anything else, and I don't really want to throw it away. So I think this is our winner here. This is what's going to go on there. So I'm going to get this fitted, and then the hard part is going to be handlebars. I'm kind of conflicted whether I'm going to do handlebars before I get it off of this stand, or if I should do them after I get it off the stand to kind of figure out where they need to go. I don't really have a lot of options. Being as this is a short frame, I'm going to need something that I can get a lot of reach with because I'm big and this frame is way too small for me. At least if I configure it as a road bike, this frame is way too small for me. But if I configure it as something a little bit more of a sort of a BMX-y type bike, not BMX-y, sort of like a, I don't know, like a hybrid hardtail mountain bike or whatever stupid marketing term you want to put on it, that kind of bike with higher bars, I think it might work just fine, but I don't really know until I can sit on the seat and do this and put my hands out on the bars. As it is, yeah, that is a really ugly stem. Perfect. That's what we're going for. All right, so that's going to be fitted. Let's see what we got for bars. Okay, so for the bars on these, I've got some kids bars. These bars came off of a kid's bike. I think we're going to run these. Let's try and give me a little bit more reach. Kind of want to run these way forward, kind of like that. Like bikes were when I was a kid. That was like the cool thing everybody did. You kick your handlebars way forward. All right, so tentatively, that's what our bars are going to look like. This is my skeptical face on this one. I'm not sure what this is going to be like. But it's getting there. It's getting there. It's definitely getting there. So let's check and make sure my hubs that I have will mount to this thing. Because I've got hubs that I think I can use for this. But I haven't really checked to make sure that they fit in the frame. So I should probably double check that before I go stringing wheels together. So let's check my hubs. Front one, I'm pretty sure. Front one, I'm like 99% sure this will work. And if it won't, I've got like 300 different ones. Because this is probably 100 millimeter. Came off of all the same bikes. Come on. Oh no, my front fork is tweaked. That could be a problem. All right, so we're going to do something called tweaking it. So the dropout on this side is a little bit tweaked. These forks might be garbage. Let me find another 700C front wheel. No, or another 27-inch front wheel. This is from the 70s. I might be able to tweak that back into shape. Yeah, that fork is tweaked. That sucks. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If you look at this dropout, it's nice and straight, and then you come over here, and this one is just like, so the wheel won't go in there straight. I might be able to heat it up and just tweak it over. So I think it's just the dropout that's tweaked. I don't think the whole fork is. I think it's just that dropout. It's kicked out over that way. So I might be able to just tweak it back into shape. I'm going to try that before I go replacing all of this because I really like the way that fork looks on there. Okay, good news. I was able to get in there, tweak that, bend it back into shape. Now our wheel is on there nice and straight. So I should still be able to use that fork. If I get it all put together and I can't use that fork, I'll just take it apart and put on another fork. So when I went through everything that I have in my backlog, the only single speed coaster brake hub I have is this one off of a kid's bike. Now, I don't know if it's going to fit. I don't know if I'm going to have a long enough axle to space it out. I have no idea. We will see what happens when I get these nuts off and I try to shove it in this frame and see what happens. If it fits, we're going to take this rim off and put a different size rim on it. Ooh. Well, this is one of those cases of if I squish it down, Still ain't gonna work. The standard 100, yeah, it's 109. 109, all right, and that's probably 126, I'm gonna imagine. Yeah, that's 126. So I was hoping I'd have enough axle length that I could just put some spacers in there and make it work. That's not going to be the case, however, and I can't squash this down by like 10 millimeters unless I cut the seat stay out, or unless I cut the brake bridge out. I don't want to do that. So I need to come up with a way to make this wider. Hold, please. Okay, quick update. This is that hub's guts, which I need to take it apart anyway, because if you notice, this is like really nasty, cheap-ass black grease in it. So it needed to be taken apart anyway. So I've got that hub's guts in this little jar here. I think I'm going to let these stew for a little while. I'm going to spray some WD-40 on these, just kind of let them sit. But what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to order a longer axle. I just looked and they make these up to like 190 millimeters. I only need 126 for back there, plus the thickness of the sides. If I had like 150, 160 millimeters total, I think that would be enough for me to make this work. And just put spacers in the middle. And I can make it work if I can get a long enough axle. So this one is too short because obviously that wheel's off a kid's bike. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to get a longer axle, and then we'll reassemble all of the guts in here on that hub with a longer axle. That's the plan as of right now. So we'll see when the axle shows up. More on that to come. So the next question, now that I'm working on the hubs, trying to get that figured out, the next question is going to be, what are we using for rims? So these are what I eeny, meeny, miny, mode for rims. These are 26-inch rims off of a Trek 800, the one that, I don't know if you can see it, but it's underneath the desk over there. But that's what these came off of. They're pretty beat up, they're pretty ugly. I think I'm gonna clean them up and then paint them. And the reason I selected these 26-inch rims is because I kind of wanted a thicker tire. I wanted something that would absorb a few more bumps in the road, and I happen to have some cheap, like Bell or Blackburn, or I think they're Walmart branded tires that I got kind of donated to me. Don't want to use them on a customer bike, but they're perfectly adequate for something like this, just a run arounder. So I think I'm going to paint these. I'm gonna clean them up and paint them, and these will be my rims as soon as I get the whole hub situation sorted out. So my axle finally showed up. This axle will go into that hub and fit my dropouts. However, an easier route has presented itself. I found this hub in all of my junk, and it's the same dimensions as that one, it just has a longer axle. So we're going to use this one because it will lace in with the rim that I have for this. So I already put some spacers on here so it'll fit in the dropouts correctly. It'll be centered-ish. It'll be centered enough that I can take up the difference when I lace the rim in. So let's get to work and let's get this hub laced into my rims and we'll go from there. All right, I am happy to report that the wheel turned out. Everything is straight and good and working. And I'm even happier to report that after I put a tire on here, it doesn't rub, which is really nice because confession time, I was a little scared that that was going to actually be a problem that I was going to have to navigate. But no, it seems to be just fine. So now that all of that is done, I can do the front one, and then we can start trying to get this thing all put together. I did find in my junk, actually it's the same bike that this thing came off of, I got this chain guard. I wanted to put a chain guard on this bike because I ride to work with jeans or slacks or whatever on, and I didn't want my pants getting stuck up into the chain. This is going to be a practical use bike. I'm going to try and ride this every day to the shop and back up the hill. So it's going to need practical things like a kickstand, a chain guard. I'm thinking about putting a rack on this. So it's definitely getting a chain guard. I've got some interesting stuff on how I'm planning to mount that, because obviously you can tell it wasn't meant for this bike. I also had to take the outer chain ring off, and I just cut the ears off of that ring, and I'm going to use those as spacers because the chain guard doesn't fit with that other ring that I had fitted on there, so we're going to do it a different way. Well, unfortunately, I won't be putting the front wheel together right now because I broke one of my cardinal rules and I ordered spokes from Amazon. For this build, the only thing that I can't really take, all the time at least, out of my scrap heap are the spokes because they have to be calculated to the hub and the rim. The rear spokes, I just got kind of lucky. These ones were only a millimeter too long. They stuck out through the nipple a little bit on the rim side, so I just ground that part off and then put some rim tape around it and everything should be fine. You can kind of get away with that on a junk build like this. But the front wheel, I wanted to lace radially with no cross on any of the spokes because there's no brake on the front end. There's no reason to not be able to do that, and I thought it would look cool. So I ordered spokes from Amazon. Ordering parts from Amazon has been something that I've been struggling with for a long time. I hate Amazon. I hate everything they stand for. I hate their overconsumption. I hate the cheap knockoff garbage that they sell. I can rant about Amazon for probably 2 hours, but it's been done on the internet 1,000 times before. It's nothing new that you haven't heard about how evil Amazon is. So I try to never order anything from them if I possibly can, but I needed to get these spokes here quick, and I needed them to be some cheaper spokes. I've had good luck in the past with this Bavel brand, so I decided to order a set of those, and what I got was useless garbage. So it kind of stung me in my ass. So I broke my own rule, and here we are. Now I can't do the front wheel. So this is a lesson learned from something stupid that I did. Don't order bike parts from Amazon. What they did is they sent me spokes that have no thread on them. So the spokes can't be tensioned. They thread into the nipple somehow, kind of, but they can't be tensioned because the threads don't line up with anything. There are no threads on them. I think what they did is they took a longer spoke that somebody returned and then cut them down, because these only need like 243 millimeter. They're a short spoke because they're radial. So I think what they did is they cut down a longer spoke and then tried to like cut threads into a hardened steel spoke, and it didn't work. So I have to send these out and return them. I have to get real spokes from somewhere else and learn from my mistake. Don't ever buy bike parts off Amazon. Like I said, this has been a hard and fast rule for me for a long time, and I broke my rule and I got stung for it. So learn from my mistake. Don't order bike parts from Amazon. All right, since I can't do the front wheel, I'm gonna shift gears and get into how I'm planning to mount the chain guard, because I really like this chain guard. I really want this to mount on here, but obviously this was born as a go fast road bike. There is no provisions for a chain guard on it, so I had to kind of come up with something and get a little interesting with it. So I'll show you what I came up with. All right, so what I wanted to do is mount this chain guard about here. Well, no, about there. So if you can look through the chain wheel, you can see that that puts a mounting point just off that front tube, just off the down tube. So I got to figure out how to put it there. And the thing is, I don't want to braze a mounting point to this because I don't want to mess up the paint. That would just, it'd take too much time. And I wanted to make it removable as well. So what I did is I went and I 3D printed a mount so I can zip tie this to put a mounting point down there. And what I'll do is I'll mount this to the chain guard right here. I'll screw that down, and then I'll put this onto the frame using zip ties. I 3D printed holes through it so the zip ties will go clean around it. Most of that will be hidden by the chain guard itself and by the chain ring, and I don't think you'll notice it much on the backside. So I think that's going to be a good way to mount it. Down on the backside, on the seat stays, I'm just going to zip tie it there, or I might 3D print another mounting there, but for right now I think just zip tying it should be fine. But first I've got to get my chain wheel mounted. So I had to take off the other chain wheel that was on here that I was using as a spacer, and I just cut the tabs off of it so I could use them to space that out. The other chain wheel was hitting the chain guard, so I had to get rid of it. So first things first, I have to remount all this on there so that it works correctly. Okay, this should be our last one. occurs to me now, I probably should have painted all of those. They would look pretty cool being like, I don't know, blaze orange or something. All right, so we'll get those torqued, and then those are all done. All right, to make this easier, we're gonna mount it before I put it on there. So go through there, go through there. Then when we get it back on there, I'll get I want to still be able to pivot. So that should be our mount, and then we'll run zip ties. Actually, I'm gonna put those zip ties on right now. That'll make it easier. So for zip ties, I wanted to do something kind of discreet just to make sure you don't see all this. So I went with neon green. That kind of matches a little bit. Nobody will notice for sure. Neon green, that's the way to go. I mean, it is a 90s frame, maybe late 80s frame, so it kind of goes with the motif. That looks about right there. Oh, good, it clears. It just barely clears, though. That is a whisper. Holy crap. All right. Oh. All right, so I'm gonna have to zip the back end down too. Okay, so I got the back end zipped. That's what I was trying to avoid. Well, maybe what I can do here. All right, so got the mounts, and then we're gonna zip this. Oop, let's go the same direction. Well, as much as this is like cobbled out of junk, I'm just as much of a, oh, actually that might have pulled it over enough right there. Oh, almost. There's enough room in there, I don't think the chain will rub, so that should be good. I'm just gonna get my zip ties down enough. All right, there we go. As you can see, we were able to keep those zip ties completely discreet. All right, next step is going to be trying to get a chain fit to this thing. And I know the real question here is, why didn't I do that before fitting the chain guard? Well, it's because sometimes I don't like myself. I like things to be as hard as possible sometimes. That's why I ordered the spokes from Amazon. Part of the reason why I want to do this now is because I want to see if I have to cut out what they filled in back there, because I don't think I'm going to have enough adjustability back there to make a chain work. I mean, the good thing about old Schwinn frames is the dropouts, even though they face forward, they're mostly horizontal. So when you're running a single speed setup like this, you can usually get enough adjustability out of that back dropout. However, they filled it in on me, so I don't think I'm going to be able to do that this time. So I might have to cut out what they filled in. The other side's open, but this side, they filled that in for some reason. So that's probably going to sabotage me a little bit. Would have been a good idea to look at that on the frame before I started building the bike, but yeah, I don't think like that. It's kind of sort of right. So we're going to have to grind that out. We're going to have to grind that out and move my hub back, which I kind of knew was going to happen. No biggie, that'll take like, I don't know, 10 minutes or something. So these are the pedals I'm going for on it. And as you notice, they're not both the same pedal. This is the black version and this is the chrome version, but they look pretty gnarly. So I kind of like the look of them. So these are gonna be the ones that we're gonna put on here. Oof, it's not liking that crank arm at all. We're gonna take that off and put some more grease in there because that's just something doesn't seem right in there. Right, everything's as good as can be expected now. I'm gonna wait to do that till later, but I should be able to get enough tension in that chain to make it work. I'll have to lube it up. It's not lubed at all, but that's kind of on purpose because I don't want to get all greasy while I'm trying to get this all working. So I'm gonna put another zip on here to hold this a little bit closer, just to keep that up. So I don't want this to hit that. I want to keep that sort of old school Schwinn look. Okay, so it's early in the morning. It's like 6:30 right now or so. I want to get this little piece zipped out of here real quick while nobody's here because it's going to be super loud. Oh, I gotta take that brake off too. So let's just get to work here and see if I can get this zipped out before everybody shows up. Well, that worked pretty well. So let me just show you what I did here. If you look really close, all I did was really open up where it was closed before so that it matches the one on the other side. So this should give us enough adjustability to make this chain work. We'll get the wheel on real quick here and double check. Well, we can definitely get enough tension on our chain now, so pull her back. What I'm going to do is tighten this side first. We don't want too much tension. And use this side to kind of get it towards the middle. That should work. It's going to be imperative to keep these really tight so that this wheel does not move. I'm just going to have to get this brake locked down. We should have a working back wheel then. I finally got spokes. They finally showed up. So I just said screw it and I ordered some DT Swiss spokes. I'm not messing around with cheap ones now. So we got some good spokes. I still got my rim. We're gonna get this thing laced up and we're gonna finally see what this thing looks like with the front wheel on it. I've been waiting 2 weeks for this. Okay, finally got the front wheel done for this. If you notice, this one is radial. It's a no cross rim. Thought that would look really kind of cool with this, especially with those really big wide hubs. I really like the way that this turned out. It looks pretty awesome. So let's get her put on the bike and see what it looks like. This is going to be a make it or break it kind of moment here. So I also want to see if this thing goes on straight. All right, that's what she's going to look like. I think that looks fantastic. Very nice. All right, now that we've got a semi-functional bicycle, the next step is going to be to put a rack on it because I'm using this thing daily and I want to be able to haul stuff. So let's put a rack on it. Now the rack I chose is one of these Plescher, not really sure how to pronounce it, it's Swiss. These racks were made in Switzerland in the 70s and 80s. They're cast aluminum, they're not just like that cheap round bar that's just kind of like thrown together. They shine up really, really nice. And they're super cheap. You can find these things at bike shows all the time for like $5, and I kind of try to hoard them when I can find them. So this is the rack we're gonna put on here because it's my favorite kind of rack. I've probably got like, I don't know, 10 or 15 of these things. I love them. So we're gonna put this one on there. All right, let's get to installing this thing. So step one will be to install this part. Oofta, I need more of this size of bolt. I don't have many more this long. All right, you want that to be kind of parallel with their top bar there. So we'll go about there. I think that looks pretty good right there. So we'll lock all of this stuff down. All right, next step is going to be kickstand, because as I mentioned, I think a bike like this absolutely should have a kickstand. Luckily, even though this was a road bike back in the day, it actually has a provision down here for a kickstand. A good kickstand is probably one of the most underrated things on the bike, I think, because it can just make using the bike that much better. There we go. Ooh, that is so close to rubbing on the tire. All right, so our kickstand is on, our rack is on. Now it's time for one of the last steps, probably one of the most fun, I think, and that's the stickers. A bike like this needs a little bit more personality, so it's gonna have to have some stickers. I came up with a pretty good name for this bike. I started calling it Cobbled Salvage because it's completely cobbled together out of salvage parts, so it just seemed to be the right name. So that is what we are going to call it. Scotch tape works way better than the stupid transfer film crap they try to get you to buy. Just use Scotch tape. It's like 100 times better. Well, it's almost on there straight. I guess it kind of fits for this bike. Let's do the other side. All right, and then I got to put this one on there, of course. It's the first time I've ever seen the green with the black background. I kind of like that. That looks kind of sharp. And more importantly, it's like a forest green, so it totally doesn't look right there. That's exactly what I was going for. All right, so we got that one there. That's going to be super comfortable. I'm kind of shocked. I thought for sure I'd have to do like a bunch of adjustments, but that's kind of like dialed in right there. All right. So one last sticker that I want to try and get on straight. Can't have a junk punk rock bike without a tattoo sticker on it, so we got to do that. Also got to think of some band stickers to put on this thing, but I don't know what those are just yet. So let's go about there. Put my drinks caddy on here and put a bottle holder on. Just because I knew I'm going to want to take water with me. A lot of old bikes don't even have provisions for water, and I don't know how they did anything. Were people just like camels back then or something? I don't know. Last but not least, we're going to put the grips on. I waited for last for the grips for this thing too, and I don't know why. It's not like it has any controls or anything that might come off. I got these really big spongy grips, and I think we're going to use those. They kind of go with the green, and they're really spongy, and they were cheap. About 10 years ago when I bought them, or however long it's been. Oh, I need to get a little bit more simple green on there. There we go. Now, I really like how that turned out. That looks fantastic. That's a very me bike. I love that thing. Let's tighten everything up, take it for a ride. All right, so I just got back from the first test ride, and the good news is it was comfortable. It rode rather well. As far as ergonomics and geometry and all of that goes, it was pretty good. Bad news, however, though, is there is something horrendous going on in the back end. So I'm going to take this thing apart and see what's going on with it. When you're pedaling, it feels fine. When you're not pedaling like it's coasting, it's grindy, and I don't know why. Kind of feels like the brake is sort of like partially engaged all the time. I'm not really sure. I'm hoping it's some kind of bearing preload or something that's set up wrong in there. I don't know. I'm going to pull it apart and figure it out. I pulled this hub off of a pile of junk parts, and I'm hoping that they wasn't in those junk parts because it was a messed up rear end. But it's starting to look like that very well could be the case. So I'm going to yank it off, rip it apart, see what's going on inside, and we'll figure it out. All right, so I have it off, and I'm just doing a couple of little tests here. And if I roll it this way and I hold it, I don't feel any crunch at all. So I don't think it's a bearing preload issue or bearings or anything like that. However, if I roll it and then I hold where the sprocket's supposed to be, you can see it's jumping, which tells me there's something catching in there, and that's what's causing that horrendous feeling in there. So I don't think it's a bearing preload issue. It doesn't seem to have any issues there, but there's some other kind of thing happening inside of this. So we're gonna have to rip it apart and see what's going on in its guts. Okay, well, I figured out exactly what was going on. It wasn't the end play or anything like that, and it wasn't the brake shoes in there that I thought it was. What it turned out to be is the carrier for the sprocket. I don't know if it's gonna come through on camera, but if you look close, you can kind of see how it's all dimpled. Hopefully that's coming through. So I have never seen one like this. The bearing surface is all dimpled up. So as you were riding it, you could feel it in the back hub. You could feel it sort of like vibrating in the back hub, and it just felt like something was completely jacked up and wrong in there. Well, that's why, and it does seem a lot smoother on the stand. We're gonna go take it for another test ride and see how we do. So yeah, that absolutely was what was going on with the back end of this thing. Once I got that dimpled bearing surface out and replaced it with one that I had in a box in the back of the shop, completely smoothed everything out, and it rides a lot better right now. However, that rear hub is not quite 100%. I think I probably will end up replacing it at some point in time. Got it in my head, I might put a 2-speed Sturmey Archer kick shift in here, but we'll see how that pans out. Having a kickstand in a rack means I'm going to get a lot of useful life out of this bike. So I'm really looking forward to riding it daily. All in all, I couldn't be happier with how this build turned out. This is exactly what I had envisioned when I decided to start this project. I'll report back on how it's doing, and you might see this bike again. I might decide to modify something else. I think I'm definitely going to put a new hub in it at some point, but we'll see. So that's going to about do it for today's video. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe stuff, and I'll catch you on the next one.